Hey, 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 guys, and we're back for another episode of Tea with Tamela. Today, we are talking about things I've been carrying around in my designer bag, and y'all know I love me a little Chanel. I have joining me my amazing mother in love, Sue Magee. So, this amazing woman raised the man of my dreams, and today we're just going to sit down and chat about different things women usually carry around that's kind of like weighing us down, and we try to fix up the exterior, but we're not doing a lot of work on the inside. And I know for me, I have this love for purses. And my mother in law and I have a ton of things in common. And this is one of the things, one of the many things that we have in common. So I remember just as a little girl, just really, really loving purses. And I can recall even at some point, probably about the age of 8, I got out of really enjoying little girl purses and I wanted like the big girl purses. I wanted the adult purses. And I remember going over to my aunt's house at one point, and she busted out laughing because I had the same purse as her. And I think it was one of those Dooney things that was kind of in like back in the day. And that was just kind of when I was like, okay, when you move up in the world, I hadn't moved up. I was probably 8 or 10. But your love for purses and your choices kind of move up. And so just over the course of my life, I went from carrying, pretty basic and nice purses that I would find and just really enjoy. And I would just dump like a ton of crap in them. I didn't really care how the inside of them really looked. And then as life kind of progressed, I started to enjoy, shopping around and understanding, investing in bags and what that kind of looked like. And with that, I tried to organize the purses because I wanted to take better care of them, right? But one day I was just kind of sitting around and I was thinking, I'm like, I'm organizing this designer purse, but I threw things in my other purse and I started to kind of, I guess, process just life. And I don't know how I process life through a handbag, but that's just kind of what I did. And I thought about just how in the beginning when I didn't have certain handbags, I just kind of like threw things in them. And over the course of my life, my love for bags kind of grew. And then I began to organize them, but it was just like a word play off of my life. Like I threw a lot of crap around, and on the outside, it looked good. On the inside, it was extremely, extremely toxic. And then as I went through different seasons of life where I felt like I was putting myself together. I was putting myself together on the outside, but I wasn't doing the internal work. And so I was still walking around, making it seem like I had everything together, threw my designer bag on, but there was still a ton of things going on the inside that I hadn't really addressed. So today we're just going to sit down and we're going to chat and we're going to figure out what are some things that you guys are carrying around in your purses, in your bags. What's the baggage that you have in your life? And on the outside, you're trying to make people feel like you have it all together and you've done all the self work and you're climbing ladders and you're getting promotions on your job and you have new friends and social media makes it look like we have it all planned out, all figured out. Everything is glorious, right? But we know a lot of times there are so many things going on the inside that we haven't really identified and we haven't really began to do the work. And so, Mina, when did you develop your love for handbags? I just want to start there, just because we're kind of using this as a little word play to play off of interior versus exterior.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here for tea with Tamela to talk about, like you said, something that we both have in common. And I cannot remember a time that I did not love purses. I, like you, was a little girl, and I remember uh, that my mom had these. purses, and I always was drawn to them. I would grab them. I don't even remember having a little girl purse. I just remember loving to play with her purses. Didn't realize what kind of purses they were at the time. Now I know that they're handbags back from the 60s. They had this little clasp at the top and this little short strap, and they were just so beautiful. She had different colors, and I would always get them. Now, still was playing with toys, so that would be on the inside. But I
Mm.
love to carry around this adult purse, and she just didn't even argue with me at the time. She was like, "Okay, if that's what you want, and that's going to keep you quiet or keep you in place, you
Mm-hmm.
can take this handbag." So I've always had a love for purses and
I
handbags.
love it. I love it. Yeah, yeah, me too. I think we sometimes be like, "Oh, that's a good bag. That's a cute bag."
Yeah,
We could purse shop all day and
yeah.
spend all of Mario's money on that. So, at what point, I guess, in your life did your, I guess, style of handbag change? Just kind of how I gave the example of um as I progressed life, like I had these goals and I had these dreams. And so on the exterior, I'm like, if I get this handbag, it makes me feel like I have my life together. It makes me feel more professional, or it makes me feel, more relaxed or more like a mom. And I guess that's one of the things that is sometimes a misconception, because we can look at people on the outside and we judge them prematurely, and some people can look like they have it all together, but they really don't. So was there like a moment where you was like, you know what, I need this handbag because it represents this, or I need this briefcase because it represents that, and then just realize, I guess, that there were other things that you were putting inside of those bags emotionally, that wasn't visible, like on the exterior of what you were kind of giving off.
Again, I did not know it at the time, but I sort of like you. I almost laughed when you said I talked about Dooney and Burke, because my dad raised me starting at age 10 by himself.
Mm-hmm.
So he would give me the money to go shopping. Once I got to middle school and started going into high school, he would give me the money and just let me go shopping. And
Mm-hmm.
I would always come home with a handbag. And from the beginning, I was always buying like Liz Claiborne, because that was Claiborne, because that was popular at the time. But then
Mm-hmm.
I too once saw this purse with the little duck on it. I did not even know the name of it. So I'm like, I want one of the purses with the little duck on it.
Well, the
And
duck
I was
purse.
going all around. Yeah, the duck purse. I didn't even realize the name of the duck purse, but that was one that I felt like I needed to have, because it looked a little bit more upscale. It looked a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more, I didn't see many people with it, so it must be something important. So it started at a really young age that I started buying purses, and it was just a love for them, and I liked the design of them. Really didn't know the significance of them, or that I was
Mm-hmm.
even moving up, except for that they cost a little bit more. But
Mm-hmm.
I would spend half of my money on the purse and come home, and without, as if I'm doing school shopping, not with any clothes or any supplies, and then have to go back and say, well, Daddy, I need more money because I ran out and I don't have what I need. But again, it started pretty young, even when I was in
Mm-hmm.
high school and middle school. And I did not realize then, like I'm realizing now, that I had started having addiction to purses because of the things that I was seeing going on in my life and around me. Because, like my
Mm.
friends and things would always talk about the things that they were doing with their moms and the things that they bought with their moms. And I'm like, well, my mom's not taking me shopping, but at least I can go back and, have this nice thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I can still fit into the conversation, and it
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't make me feel bad. So the handbags made me feel important. They made me feel they made me feel
Mm-hmm.
like, I had it. And even at that age when I didn't know what was going on, I was already filling my bag with
Mm.
things. Yes,
Filling your bag with all kind of
yes,
things. That's the
yes.
story of my life for sure. I have filled my bag with so many things from a young age, and as I guess bad as it sounds, as a person who sometimes people run to for advice and feeling like I have it all together, like I'm still filling my bag with things. And it's like, how do we get to a place like where we really begin to, I guess, upgrade the interior? How do we identify, like, what is it that's going on the inside of us that's causing us to kind of try to fix the exterior so we can kind of, I guess, throw people off and make them think one thing when internally we know like it's something totally different. Or sometimes I feel like we attempt to fool ourselves. So at what point did you begin to really upgrade the interior of your bag? You're like, okay, I have this nice bag, and it's allowing me to deal with whatever emotion that I have going on, or kind of throw people off. But I got a lot of baggage that's causing me to even think like that. And then I have a lot of unorganized chaos that I'm throwing in this bag, and I'm just carrying it around, and it's weighing me down. So at what point in life did that upgrade happen or begin to
Well,
happen?
unfortunately, for me, I didn't figure out that I had all this stuff going on. It was just like I hit rock bottom and I was like, oh, okay, this something is wrong. So it wasn't like I
Mm,
sat down one day and opened up the inside of my bag and said, okay, this, you got to look at all this stuff you got going on. Look at all this stuff, because I was managing it. Thought
mm,
I was managing it. And so, like the enemy was selling me all these lies, and he doesn't have to sell them for long once you believe
mm.
them.
Oh yeah.
So when you believe them, you start living the lie, you start telling the lie to others, and you start believing the lie.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am at a point where I think, hey, I'm managing this. My life looks good. Like you said, people can't see what's going on the inside of me because the outside of me was put together. I made sure
Mm-hmm.
that it was the outside of my bag was always clean, always wiped up, always
Mm-hmm.
shining, always looked new and fresh, and the inside was a jumbled up mess. But even
Mm.
when I looked in the inside, I would look and say, it's not that bad. I can
Yep.
manage it. I can move this around. I can put this in this place. Or I can put another little bag on the inside that's gonna I can put the things in that bag and zip it up and nobody really can
Mm-hmm.
see it. So I
Mm-hmm.
got small bags inside of my big bag and I'm just carrying around thinking that I'm managing it and I'm not.
Mm.
So, like I say, I didn't come to that realization just because I sat down. I came to that realization because one day that bag got so heavy
Mm.
that it wasn't me carrying the bag anymore. It was the bag literally dragging me down. And
Ooh.
so that's when I realized that, hey, something is wrong. I have to do something different. So it was not like I just sat down one day. It was like the pressure of carrying that bag got so heavy that I had to, or I was going to be completely down on the ground.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many of us find ourselves in that place. It's
Mhm.
like we just continue to like stuff things. Like, we just stuff in the bag. I got it. And just kind of how you use the example, you put a little bag inside of a big bag and you zip it up. And I just think about my personality. It's so organized. I got all kind of little bags. But it's so much junk in all them little bags,
Yeah.
literally. But then the same thing is also going on emotionally a lot of times where
Mhm.
we're just constantly like stuffing things down. And at some point, we either explode or we hit rock bottom.
Mhm.
And we don't really want either of those to happen. So, like, what can women and young girls even do to identify the baggage that they're carrying around, yet they're concealing it inside of a little bag or however in a backpack or however they tend to go about their day to day life?
Well, one thing that I know for sure that you can do is sit down and actively look in your bag. Even
Mm,
if we're saying our own handbags, we can look in that bag and we can identify everything that's in there, whether it's out of place
mm-hmm.
or not. And we can
Yeah.
remember when we got it, we can remember how we got it, and then we can say, well, why am I still carrying it around if I haven't used it, if I don't need it? Because one thing that I carry around a lot of are receipts.
Mm.
And just in my natural handbag, I don't know why I collect receipts. Sometimes the ink is off, half of it, but I'm still carrying it around. And I'm like, what is the purpose of this receipt? But I know it's a receipt. I know I got it from someplace that I've been. I just
Mm-hmm.
have not detach myself from having it and carrying it around. So the same thing in our lives. We can sit down with ourselves, but the first thing that we have to do is be honest with ourselves.
Mm.
And a lot of times we don't want to be honest with ourselves and say that, this may be something that I'm doing, because it's
Mm-hmm.
always easy if we can associate the stuff with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But when we
Oh
have to
yeah.
sit down and say, this is my responsibility, this is why I'm carrying this is how I picked this up. And then and only then will we be able to start working through it and start the process of the cleaning or the
Right.
reorganizing or the downsizing, even.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Sometimes you got to get rid of that big purse and get your crossbody, huh?
Get rid of get you a crossbody. And that's where I am right now. My purses used to look like a mini overnight suitcase because I had so much stuff, and it resembled my life. It was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of stuff inside of stuff inside of stuff, layers,
Mm-hmm.
layers of stuff. My life was layers of brokenness, layers of mistrust, layers of issues that I was just all different kind of things. And my inside of
Mm-hmm.
my bag looked like that too. So I needed a big one. But now, like you said, I'm down to a crossbody, and people cannot even believe that I can, can carry that kind of bag. So can you imagine? People see me and they're like, "What are you doing?" That know me know, like, "What are you doing with that little purse?" But
Right.
that's a whole nother story that we
I
may
know. That's
ever
how
share that later on
I
down the
know.
line. Yeah, yeah,
Look, my purses be the same way. I remember when I was in college and somebody was like, "You anybody got a first aid kit?" I went in my bag. I had a first aid kit. Anybody got a safety pin? I went in my purse. I had like, what am I doing at 21
yeah,
with all of this stuff in my purse? So they started calling me Mama Tam real early. Why she got anybody got a snack bar? Oh, I got you. I got everything you need. Blood sugar drop, I got
yeah,
you. Your
yeah.
shirt bust, I got you. But again, like you said, it resembled my life in so many different ways. And it's hard to I guess even begin to really identify that.
Mhm.
So how can people, I guess, begin to identify the baggage that they're carrying around so that they're able to do the self work that is freeing? I feel like a lot of times we just start stuffing things so quickly that we don't even
Mhm.
realize what we're stuffing down, what we're putting inside of these bags, what's weighing us down. So how can we identify that and then begin a self-work that is uplifting, but that is freeing us from these situations and the bondage and all the things?
Yeah, first, like I said, you have to be honest, and that is starting with you, identifying who you are, getting back to who I am and what do I really like. What am I carrying this purse because someone else has it or because it's popular? Why?
Mm,
So this is getting down to your identity, understanding your values, understanding, your morals and your priorities and your needs. Because a lot of the things that you carry around is because you've conformed to the environment you're in, or you've
mm-hmm,
conformed to the family that you're in and the way that you were raised, or you conform to the relationships that you're in, or just society in general. So we picked up these things as this is how we should look, this is what we should carry,
mm-hmm,
and that carries a lot of weight in itself when you are not your authentic self. So you have to start with, who am I? That's a
mm.
real legit question that we, especially as women, need to use as a checkpoint on a regular basis. Who am I? You know, who am I outside of a mom? Who am I outside of someone's wife? Who am I outside of my job? You know, that is who you are. Those other things are titles and, you know, things that you've taken on. That's what your life has shaped into. But inside of that, inside of my marriage, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Inside of being a mother, who am I? Inside of whatever career or path I take for my work, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And be free with that. Because until you're free with that, you can't do any work. Can I show up authentically in my relationship, you know, and be this person and my spouse or whoever accepts me, even when I'm growing and changing? Because authentically, you are changing on a regular basis. So, really, the
So
person that they
true.
marry may not be the person you are in 10 years or 11 years, but are they comfortable with your growth? Are they
Mm-hmm.
supporting your growth? You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? So, that's all
Yep.
a part of you identifying yourself. You know, I was this way as a mom when my children were small, my first child. But, you know, I've grown and I'm different with the
Mm-hmm.
next number or the next number. So then you have to be true. This is who I am in this space. That helps you value and honor yourself, and it helps you show other people how to value and honor you. So you can start doing the work there, and then your
Wow.
values show up. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is what I look like. And when you have your values in place, again, this is what I feel about myself. This is what I think about myself. Therefore, when you come to me or when I come to you, we can interact in a truthful manner because I can tell you this is who I am. I can show you, and then you respond accordingly. If I'm showing up in a false way and then people treat me that way, but
Mm-hmm.
deep down inside, I'm not being true to myself, that eventually is going to hurt.
Ooh.
That's eventually going to cause some damage. That's eventually going to cause you to feel bad about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So only way that we can start the work is to be truthful, be honest. And that's a sit down. You can sit down with yourself. But when you sit down with the Lord and ask Him to reveal you to you, He'll show you. He'll show you
Wow.
these are some things that you need to work on. These are some things that you need to take responsibility of. You know, I can no longer say, my spouse made me do this or he expected this out of me, so I had to do this. No, be confident in the Lord and who He's saying that you are, and confident enough to let that He will show your spouse also how to honor you
Mm.
in that place. Show you how to raise your children in an authentic way. Not that my kids go to this school, so they're expecting my kids to look like this. They're expecting me to look like this, so this is how I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
show up. And when you go home, you're emotionally drained, you're physically drained, you're spiritually drained because you can only take on those types of things so long before on the inside it's just filling up with all this negative because you are
Wow.
not being who you are, and you don't have an outlet because you're not showing up as yourself. So again, to shorten this short answer that I'm giving, it starts with identifying yourself and then your values and your priorities and your needs. And if I can expound on any one of those, it's your needs. Always
Mm.
make sure you know your need. Because
Mm.
if you won't be honest with yourself about your need and how to give that across into other people and relationship and spaces that you're in, you're going to be depleted. And we
Woo.
can no longer say, you know, I'm okay with it. Especially as women, I can do it. It's okay. You know, I'm strong. I can handle it. This is the way I'm supposed to be. You
Uh-huh.
know, fit in however I'm
Mm-hmm.
supposed to fit in. Know
Mm-hmm.
your needs.
Mm-hmm.
Women need to know how to express their needs. And this all comes from you sitting with yourself, but sitting in yourself in a position before the Lord so He can continue to show you who He created you to be. And God, we know, is progressive. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're sitting before Him, you're going to be progressive. And so people are going to have to know how to see that in you and know that you're truthful in who you are and how to accept that. Yeah.
Ooh, child, I didn't want to get up and run around and shout. We done had a whole Sunday service. but That is so big and that's so needed because I feel like a lot of times, like nobody, or I won't say nobody, but a lot of times, majority of us aren't hearing that. That's not what we're hearing. We're hearing something that is totally opposite. So I feel like a lot of times we begin to lose ourselves trying to
Yeah.
check the boxes when it comes to our faith. We lose ourselves when we try to check the boxes when it comes to being a wife or a mom or an entrepreneur or whatever workspace we're in. And so it's one of those things where we get lost and we begin to just keep adding heaviness to our bags, and these things begin to weigh us down, and we lose ourselves in trying to really maintain these relationships or maintain a false
Mhm.
identity that we've put out there. And so I
Mhm.
think it's important for us to really listen to what you've said and really digest that and be able to meditate on that and take it before the throne. Um,
Yes.
so how has, I guess, the self-work that you've began to do, how's it been beneficial for your overall growth? And what are some lessons that you've learned just kind of on the journey? Because I know throughout life, like our journeys change, our paths change, like whatever we have going
Mhm.
on, like we can start on one path and we take a detour. And so what have been some things in you doing the self work and sitting with yourself that's been beneficial in your overall growth? And what are those lessons, whether they've been hard, whether they've been easy, that you've learned that has put you
Mhm.
in a position where you're like, okay, I choose me and I choose to grow and I choose to thrive and I choose to address all the things that I've been carrying around that hasn't been beneficial for me?
Yeah. The work, I can say, has been difficult, but it has
Mm
been so worth it. Some of the lessons that I've learned and some of the things that I've learned to accept about me is the first thing that helped me when I started working was to realize that I was not broken, because I had lived in a space for so long that I felt like, on the inside, I'm
hmm.
feeling
Mm
I'm broken. Something's wrong, something happened, something about me was not right because I had failed relationships. I didn't have a good relationship with my mom, just so many things that it was
hmm.
just like,
Mm
I'm broken. But God
hmm.
helped me to realize you are not broken. And when I got that, you've been in some broke places,
Mm
I
hmm.
can fix that,
Mm
but you
hmm.
are not broken.
Mm
So
hmm.
that was the start of the work for me, is to let God start fixing and moving in those places that were broken.
Mm
But
hmm.
I was not broke. He was restoring
Mm
me as he was fixing those places. And then I also learned that once he started doing that, I learned that I don't need all the stuff. Just going back to the handbags was a coping mechanism. I had become
mm.
addicted to those things to cover up all the things that were going on inside. When I
Mm.
felt down or when I felt depressed or when things weren't going right, guess what I did? I went and bought me a new handbag. I bought the biggest, I bought the best, I'm just like, okay. And when I come
I
out,
bought two last week. I get it,
yeah,
girl.
yes, it's like, okay, I got this bag, I fill it up, go home again, take all the stuff out of the other bag, put it in that bag. So, life really, I get a
Uh
new look. I get my hair done a different way. I buy a new outfit. I start taking it. I still got all this stuff in the inside of that. And then guess what? A week later, sometimes the
huh.
next day, I'm
The
like,
next hour.
yes. It's like the stuff start coming out. Have you ever had a purse that you reached in to get something and stuff just started coming out, or you digging and stuff flying out? Because you got so much
Mm
stuff in there that's not organized.
hmm.
That was
Mm
life. That's what I was doing. So when I
hmm.
realized
Mm.
that, okay, God is starting to fix these places. He's starting to move in my life. He's starting to show me, all the chaos, all the unhappiness and what it was due to, and my role in it. You're accepting that stuff. It's not what people are doing to you. It's not, what's happening to you. It's the things that you're allowing. So that's different than saying someone's doing this to me and God said, no, you're allowing it. And this is why you're allowing it. You're allowing it because you think it's going to make you feel better. You think it's going to make you look better. You think it's going to fix all the other places that you're not working in. So the lesson that I've learned through the work that I've been doing is I don't need the stuff. And guess what? The stuff is not leaving any room for God to work in my life. So when I'm saying, okay, I got all this stuff, I need it. I need this because this may happen. Like when you said the first aid kit, well, why am I carrying the first aid kit? Why am I carrying a sewing kit, in my purse? What is the purpose of that? Why am I carrying receipts that don't even have any writing on them anymore, folded up in my purse, So you got all of this stuff in there because you think at some point I'm going to need it. So I don't want to need it and not have it. So we pack all the stuff. When I would travel or I would go places, I would put every book, every notebook, just everything that I thought that I would need. I mean, carry a laptop, carry an iPad. Okay, really. Just think about it. You just stuff and stuff in there because you might need it. So think about your life and the things that you picked up along the way. You've picked up protection for yourself. You think I got to protect myself so nobody will ever do this to me again. So you stuff that down in there. I have to stuff some pride or some attitude down in there because if someone say something to me out of place, I might need to pull that out of there. So we putting all this stuff down on the inside. Oh, I got to carry this fake smile on the inside because if I go to this place, I got to pull it out and put it on. So it's all this stuff we stuff. Really, this is the truth. This is all this stuff that we're stuffing down in our purse that we like, I might need it. But are you putting all this stuff in place? And God like, okay, so, where am I supposed to fit? You got him stuffed inside the little bag, inside the little bag, inside the little bag. So when stuff start falling out, you got to go down in the bottom of the bag trying to pull God out. That's some of the lessons that I learned through this process. Really, you got all this junk in here that you might need.
Don't serve you.
And the thing that you need when you get into a situation, you got to dig down to the bottom and try to pull it up and dust it off and be like, okay, here it is, and pull it out. So these are some of the lessons that I've learned in doing the work. And God has been so gracious with me to, even though it's been hard, he's been there. He's been there every step of the way. He's like, okay, I knew this day was coming. I'm here. Whenever you get ready to lay it down or whenever this bag gets too heavy, because what he said, my burdens are light. So if you carrying around all this stuff and it's heavy, daughter, it's not coming from me. It's not of me. You just done dressed up. You just done dressed up a bunch of junk and carrying it around and it's not working. So that's a benefit in itself, is just understanding, getting to the point in your life where you're like, this is not serving me. This is not working. Because when you can be honest with yourself about that, then God can do the work. Then you can do the work. One of my favorite stories, and I talk about it all the time, is the woman at the well. When he asked her to go get her husband, and she was like, I don't have a husband. He said, well, you had 5. And the one you have now is not yours. He made her accept her truth, right? So he's not condemning her for the men, but he's saying, look at all these cycles. You had 1,000 handbags. And the one you got right now, you're not in love with it. So
the one you bought last week, you don't even like no more.
The one you just bought yesterday, or the one you got in that cart on the internet at your favorite shop. It's not gonna serve you. You keep going around doing the same thing. and
Yep.
it's not serving you. But once she said that I don't have one, that's the moment that the work began, because she accepted her truth. And
Mm.
Jesus was able to start working at that point. Then she started asking him for the things that he had promised her.
Yep.
So I'm gonna lay down, I'm gonna lay this stuff aside. I'm not gonna even tell you this man's name,
Mm.
because it's not important to me now. You've I've spoken my truth, you're working in me, and I want what you have, not this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So let me sit with you and get. She asked for the water that he had told her about at the beginning of the chapter. She, at that point, once she accepted her own truth about her life, started asking for what Jesus had for her. And that's when our work begins. The moment that we tell ourselves the truth about all the stuff, all the baggage that we have, all the things on the inside that we have tried, and we've tried all different kinds. One thing that I've tried a lot of is makeup. I've tried every different kind of makeup on the market, I believe, trying to find one that would work for me. And so now, guess what I've got? I got a basket full of all different kinds of makeup and some in my purse, and none of them are working. So
Mm-hmm.
at some point, I need to be truthful about myself and understand, when I'm talking about the identity, understand that my
Mm-hmm.
skin just won't accept it.
Right.
And
Oh,
understand,
wow.
okay, your skin is okay. Work on your skin. Make it look
Mm.
the best that it can look. And
Mm-hmm.
then you don't have to keep trying to mask it with all these other different kinds of
Ooh.
things that are not working. So those are some of the lessons that I've learned. Those are some of the benefits of the work, is that once you tell your truth, once you accept your truth, God can start working on you in those spaces, because you are not going to be able to do this work alone. And he will show
That's
you
it.
every step of the way what you need, whether it's you need to journal, you need to spend
Mm-hmm.
more time in meditation, or you need to get into a support group, if you need therapy. All those things you can get from
Therapy
sitting with the
good.
Lord.
Yep.
Yes. So those are some of the lessons that I have learned along the way.
No, that's big. Listen, all of that will preach. Look, we can do a whole sermon series probably for the next 3 months off that, because
Yes.
I think it's something that a lot of times, like, it wasn't until my adulthood, after I was a wife,
Mm-hmm.
after I was a mom, that I heard those things, that I heard those truths.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just thinking, like, what if I heard those things 15 years ago and I
Mm-hmm.
began that work? What if I was
Yeah.
able to identify all the things that I was carrying around that was baggage, like how beneficial it would have been to who I've become. But it's like now the bag is so heavy, and so it's like you got to backtrack. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that is so big, that is so beneficial. Carly Face, where'd you come from? Go find your dad. Let me start with a comment. Okay, one of the heaviest things that a lot of women carry around has to do with relationships, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
relationships with family, whether it's a parent, uncle, whatever that, relationships with friends, relationships with a significant other, a spouse. We're looking for love, we're trying to figure out. So a lot of times relationships are weighing us down. Like, what can we put into place to begin escaping the relationships that don't serve us well? Because I feel like over the course of our lives, like, we cultivate so many different relationships, but not every relationship that is formed is beneficial for us. And so, how
Mm-hmm.
do we begin to escape those relationships that don't serve us well? Whether it's with family, like, how do we say, listen, auntie, uncle, or whoever, mama, like, well, what's going on? It's not serving me because it's toxic,
Yeah.
and it's adding more baggage to my bag. Or
Yeah.
whether it's with friends, like, throughout the course of your life, like, your friendships change, like the season of life that you're in, like, everything changes. And so the childhood best friend, like, you don't serve me well when
Yeah.
you're giving me, the wrong advice. Or whether it's with a significant other, you're trying to figure out what love looks like, what this relationship looks like, or a spouse, like what are we doing in our marriage? How do we begin to escape? Because sometimes escaping is hard, and we don't even know how to begin to get ourselves out of these toxic relationships. Like, how do we do that? How do we do that?
Like you said, letting go sometimes is hard. Escaping is hard, but I have learned that holding on when it's time to let go is harder than letting go.
Mm,
And we don't want to
mm,
accept that. We are taught to hold on and work on it. And, if we do this, or if we say this, or if we just maybe lower our standards, things will work out better. But the
mm-hmm,
one thing that you can put in place are your boundaries. And we will never set boundaries until, again, we know our own true identity. We show
mm,
up authentically. We know our values. We know our priorities. We know our needs. So then we don't have a problem setting a boundary. And the boundary is not a defensive mechanism to just shield people off. It's something that comes on the inside to protect you against those people, or against those situations, or against those things,
wow.
because they don't line up with my values, my priorities, my needs. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so me holding on to that is really me hurting myself more than the people are hurting me.
Ooh.
Because again, we have to take responsibility for everything that comes into our life. We allow it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's there, we allow it.
Right.
I'm not talking about the things that people do to abuse us outright that we don't have any control over, because those things,
Right.
we have to know that those things do happen. But in terms
Mm-hmm.
of relationship, we can determine who we let in and out of our lives. And we have to
Mm.
know why they're there, in what capacity they're there, and
Right.
what's the need for it there. And that's only when
Right.
we know who we are and what we need, value, and prioritize. And then the one thing that, another thing is the power of the choice. When we show up that way with our values, with our standards, our boundaries in place, we have to respect the other person's choice if they choose not to honor that. That's their
Mm.
choice.
Wow.
And when you can accept somebody else's choice, you know how to respond to that. That's your
Ooh.
part. I have these boundaries in place. You chose not to respect them. So now I have to decide what I need for myself. And that's with any relationship. I'm not going to take your choice away. Be happy with it. That's you. That's what you needed. But to take care of myself, I'm not getting ready to lower my values, lower my standards, take away my boundaries to let your choice, me choose your choice over my choice.
Mm.
And a lot of us women, men too, will we like to fix things. We like to nurture things. We like to make things right. That's what we've been taught.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're doing all those things, a lot of times we're letting ourselves down
Mm-hmm.
because we want to fix them. So we have to keep doing what it takes to fix them, what they need, what they want, what's their
Mm.
priority.
Whew.
So you see how that looks in
Uh-huh.
relationships. So again, it's not the person, it's us. And until we know ourselves, until we know what we need, again, until we know our values, till we know our priorities, we're never going to set boundaries. We'll just go into it however, and then whatever happens comes in. We go in and it comes in. And then before you
Mm-hmm.
know it, you're way down. Because on the inside, you know what you want,
Right.
but we don't express it to the other person because we put them first.
Mm.
We put the situation first. We put the relationship first. I'm supposed to get along with all my uncles. I'm supposed to love all my aunts. I'm supposed to, not speak up for myself against the elders. But if
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing is not benefiting me and hurting me,
Mm.
that's supposed to is crossing the line of my
Yep.
life.
Yep.
And when I love myself, then I can make a choice for myself and stick to
Mm-hmm.
it. And that's
Right.
the power of you having a choice. So you
Yep.
have a choice, and then let that person have a choice. You respect theirs and make them respect yours. And then I think we can all get along a lot better.
No, I like that. Like everyone has a choice, and
Hmm.
we have a choice. The
Yeah.
people who we're engaging or have a relationship with, whether it's a parent, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a friend, like they have a choice. But
Hmm.
we can't lower our standards and say
Yes.
yes to what they're like.
To their choice. No. Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna clap because somebody needed that. I
Hmm.
don't know who you are, but you needed that, and I need you. I need you to rewind, write down the note, and really begin to believe that. Um, yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. So once we identify, I guess the things that are eating us alive internally that no one is aware of on the outside because of
Hmm.
our social media, because we dress nice and we have the nice handbag, because we we have the language and the lingo and the body, just all the things that make people
All
think.
the things.
Like once we are able to identify that, the things that are going on the inside, how can we begin the healing journey? Because I feel like until we sit with ourselves, which is something you said
Hmm.
early on, and identify these things, there's no way to heal. We're just gonna keep adding bags, keep adding, and stuff
Hmm.
just gonna be busting out the seam till we break a handle or something. And then we're gonna try to stitch that up and keep going, or just use one handle. So what is it? I guess that we can do in that situation.
Well, the first thing, like you said, we identify it. We make the decision that, okay, I need some things to change in my life. But then we have to go through a process. And a lot of times that's when we turn around. We make a decision. A lot of us be like, you
Mm.
know what, this is not working for me. And then you go right back into it. Okay, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, this gotta stop, and the next day it start back up because you
Mm-hmm.
made the decision, but you didn't go through the process. And the process for each
Mm.
one of us is going to be different. But know that there's a process. And the first step after making the decision is saying, okay, no more.
Right.
I'm not going back into this. I'm not
Mm.
going to keep acting like this. I'm not going to keep showing up like this. That's you taking responsibility. Then your
Mm-hmm.
process can begin. You can start seeing what kind of work you need to do. What is it that I need to do? Do I need to unpack all these emotions that I have and figure out where they came from? Again, do I need to understand what's wrong with my confidence and how I
Mm-hmm.
feel about myself, my value, and my worth? Where,
Mm-hmm.
where did that start? Where did that come
Yep.
from? This is all the way that you get the ball rolling. You start, in the area where you're seeing that you need it. Why am I needing this relationship? What's so important about it? Where is it coming from? You start wherever it is that you need to start. What's the most pressing thing? What's the thing that keeps showing up? What's the
Mm-hmm.
cycle? Like the woman in the well, this was the husbands. You know, you got a lot of those. So think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You're angry every day. You're sad
Mm.
every day.
Mm.
You keep staying in this relationship with this person that you know that is hurting you and is only giving you a partial of what you need.
Mm.
So why do you keep pouring your full picture into a teacup?
Whew.
Guess what?
Just
All your
overflowing.
goodness spilling out all over the table. But
Mm.
you keep pouring, and then you realize it, but you don't realize this person don't even have the capacity to hold me, to hold my love, to hold my uh, joy, to hold my
Mm-hmm.
friendship. But I
Mm-hmm.
keep pouring, and it's just spilling all out, all my value, all my worth, all those
Mm.
things is going to bring me down, just spilling out, running off the table onto the floor. Why? Why am I doing that? That's part of your process. You need to figure that out.
Wow.
So we can't say this teacup got to explain to me the picture why it can't hold me. But that's usually what we do. So we don't ever
Absolutely.
start the process. We just start blaming the teacup. So
That's
that's
so
it.
true.
We make the decision, but we
Mm-hmm.
don't follow through with the process, because guess what? The process is hard. The
Ooh.
process is ugly. The process is, like you say, letting people down. And it's not me letting you down. It's me finally choosing myself.
Mm.
So that's the
That's it.
process. And you be like, oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings. So guess what? You go right back into that place you said was not going to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I can teach him how to love me, or I can teach her
Mm.
how to love me. You can't teach a person that's not capable of loving their own selves, or themselves, to how to love you.
Mm-hmm.
They have to figure out love on their own and what love is. What you teaching
Mm-hmm.
them is going in one ear and out the other and sounding like nagging.
Yep.
So you have to understand it, but you keep going back. You keep going back because he looked good, or because we look good together, or just because, we have a few good times, but then I go home and cry all night.
Mm.
We've gone
Yep.
back. We've gone back to the decision that we made because the process got hard. So that's how you
Mm-hmm.
start. You start with the decision, but then after you make the decision, commit to going through the process. That I am not going to turn back. I'm not going to accept. I'm not going to lower my standards and not choose myself anymore. Commit to that. Because
Right.
until you make a commitment to it, we can say it all day. But until we make the commitment that, hey, I'm not doing this anymore, it's not benefiting me.
Mm-hmm.
This is coming out of my bag,
Yep. Taking
and
it
I'm
out.
leaving space. That's what you're doing
Ooh.
when you make the decision to go through the process. Now you're leaving space for the water that Jesus has promised you, the living water that's going to give
Mm-hmm.
you life. You've been giving life all this time to you've been giving your life somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just been depleting you. But when you start
Right.
taking that stuff off, you give space to God. You give Jesus space to start working in those areas in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and the living water flows. And even if you do end up going back and fixing those relationships at a different time, or those situations at a different time, guess what? You can come back full, and you can come back giving from a different place, and maybe
Right.
seeing that person from a different place, or that situation from a different place. But until you can get filled up for yourself, because you made the commitment to go through the process of doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
things won't change.
Wow. That's a mouthful. That that
Look, I
that
know I
that's
give these
needed.
long answers, so I am hoping
No.
that
It
I
is so
answering your
needed.
questions.
You are answering them, and what I love is you're not just answering the question, but you're giving a way to go. Like you're giving a strategy. Like this is how you go about it. This is how you identify. This is how you move forward. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of times, even when we sit like with a friend and we're trying to figure things out, like they don't give us all of this, or we're sitting with our spouse and we're trying to figure out. They give us a small portion of this. And so it's so good to hear it because it's coming from a woman who's lived life,
Mhm.
who's done all the things, who's figured it out, who's continuing to do the work on self. And I feel like so many of us are trying to get there and we don't know how to get there. And so this is so important, I think, for us to hear and to digest, because it's one of those things where I feel like we're just going through life and we're just checking so many boxes that don't serve us well. And the things that we need to pull out of the bag is some of the things that we love, it's some of the things that we admire, some of the things that we don't want to part ways with,
We
but
don't
it's
want to part
falling
ways.
apart. And it's like, it don't serve you. You know, how you use the example of the receipt. I just like paper. I love paper. I mean, from notebooks to index card, I love paper. But if it ain't nothing on the receipt, why am I
Nothing.
holding on to it?
Nothing.
I need to shred this, trash this.
Yeah.
Why did I even keep it? And so I think it's so important for us to hear these things, and coming from a place of from someone who lives a faith-filled life, someone who is doing and has done so much work on self, someone who hasn't had the cookie cutter, crystal clear, life where it's like, I've had to go through some things to get to where I am now.
Yeah.
And so many of us are trying to get to the other side, and we're not there yet. But then when we go and try to, I guess, be vulnerable with other people, they don't give us full truth. They don't have all the experiences or the faith to pair with it. And so it's so important that we hear this. Ladies, I need you to hear this. Men, if you're listening, hear it and apply it. Like
Yes.
apply it.
Yes.
Because the enemy is busy and he's trying to distract us. He's trying to get us off course. He's speaking his truths, and sometimes, if I'm honest, the enemy's voice becomes louder than God's voice,
Mm-hmm.
depending on which season of life we're in.
Yeah.
And we don't know who we're listening to. And then sometimes we hear something from God, and the enemy takes it, and he gets us on his own path. And we think
Mm-hmm.
we're hearing from the God, and we sitting at the devil's feet and don't
That's it.
even realize it. And so it becomes conflicting, and it kind
Mm-hmm.
of gets us off path. And so my next question is, what are some truths that you've replaced with the lies of the enemy? Because the enemy has so many lies. God has so many beautiful truths, but the enemy can take one word in God's truth and twist it, and it
Yes.
creates a different narrative that it becomes a lie. And so what have you done, just in your walk with that?
Well, you're right about the enemy, and this started even back in the garden. He comes to snatch God's word from us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that he feels like he can take or twist or get us confused about with Eve. He twisted it. Did God really say that? And he said it because of this. So yeah, as soon as we say, okay, I read God's word, I did this, and I'm gonna stand on it. And then, like you said, the enemy comes in and he's
Mm-hmm.
twisted. And he'd be saying, okay, did he say that you weren't supposed to uh, get in this relationship? Or he only said it because he knew that, this was a good guy. You could make this
Mm-hmm.
work.
Mm-hmm.
Twisting the words.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the important things I've learned in Proverbs when it tells us to guard our heart. This is one of the things that is so true. We have to guard our heart against all the things that the enemy could do to us. But it says the few verses before that, he says, get my word in. When you get my
Mm.
word in, it'll start unwrapping in your heart,
Right.
and it'll go
Mm-hmm.
down to your core. Then he says, guard your heart. But a lot of us feel like, oh, okay, I'm gonna guard my heart. Well, you holding in all the lies of the enemy. You haven't gotten God's word, and
Mm.
you started guarding your heart, and then you want to put God's word in. So the enemy's still trapped in there. He's still talking, but the verses before. That's why it's so important when you're reading the word is to read a couple verses before, read a couple verses after,
That part.
because there's so much context in there. So he says,
Mm-hmm.
get my word, take my word in. Let my word get in your heart and start doing the work, because it's going to go all the way down to the core of you. Then, like I said, he says, guard your heart, because the well springs of life flow from that. So when you're
Wow.
hearing the enemy's voice, guess why you're hearing it so loudly? Because it's the well springs of your life coming out. So if you're confused, as I have been confused, and I couldn't understand the confusion, even though God's word was saying he's not the author of confusion. So I'm like, well, so why am I so confused? Well, he's like, you don't wrap yourself in all the lies of the enemy. If you're not dismantling his lies with my word, then protecting it, he's gonna keep speaking, because he's what's on the inside. He's gotten so in there, and he makes you think, okay, if when you get a word from God, if he's in there, he's gonna contest it. And when he contests it, then that's where the confusion comes in.
Yep.
But
That's so true.
we haven't guarded ourselves against it by putting God's word in. And more of God's word that we put in, we're gonna push him out. We keep pushing
Mm-hmm.
him out. And as we push him out a little farther, trust God, then put the guard up. Let God's word come in. Trust God. Then put the guard up. eventually you're just pushing him out because he don't have any space. But
Right.
if you guard it and try to put God's word in, guess what? He can't get in, and the enemy's not coming
Wow.
out.
That's it.
So that's what I've learned about the enemy and the lies that he's told us, and that's what I've learned to put in place. That's what I've learned to try to live by. Is I just got to trust God
Mm-hmm.
even when it's not what I want, because our flesh,
Right.
a lot of things we blame on the enemy. We want to blame that the devil is doing it, but the Lord said that okay, we battle the enemy, true enough, but He also says, kill your flesh daily,
Kill
because
your
we
flesh
have
daily.
some pleasures, because we live in a sinful world, so
Right.
we want pleasurable things, and so when it's
Mm-hmm.
not feeling good or when it's not looking good, when God told us to wait, the enemy's over here saying, well, did He really
Mm.
tell you to wait? Then your flesh raised up on this side and be like, look, I don't want to wait. So then you
That's
you
it.
you stuck in the middle of these two things, and you have a problem. So
Start
God,
making
so
your own
we
thing.
can't. Yeah, we start making our own thing. We start hearing this
Mm-hmm.
voice, and why are we hearing it? Because it's pressing in on every side.
Mm.
It's
Yep.
coming from both sides. It's coming from us, and it's coming from the enemy. I used to say
Ooh.
all the time now, people say, what, a devil or the enemy? And he's like, look, I didn't have anything to do with that. That is not my work.
That's all you.
Because it's you. You got to understand that you got some responsibility in this thing too. And that's another
Mm-hmm.
major thing, that we have to take responsibility for the things that's going on in our lives. We have to take
Right.
responsibility. Like you said, we hold on to things that's not
Mm-hmm.
working because we just feel like we may need it.
Yep.
Old sweaters that got holes in them, shoes that are not coming back in style, but just in case,
Just
you
in
know,
case.
our flesh that loves pleasure, that loves to please us, makes us think, okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, do that.
Right.
Because if it comes back in, you want to be in fashion, you want to be in style, in case you get
Mm-hmm.
cold, you're going to need that sweater. Remember that it kept you warm all those times, but now it's got 1,000 holes in it, but you keeping it because you remember the time that it made you
Mm-hmm.
warm.
Yep.
Not your reality
Yep.
of today. And that's another thing. And I keep saying another thing because it's so many things, but we don't
That's a
live
million
in
little
our
things.
reality. We won't
Right.
look at what's today. What is my
Right.
life today? We look
Mm-hmm.
at the past. We look at the future about what it could be. Oh, this gonna look. It's gonna look. It's gonna look. Or it used to be. It used to be. It used to be. And today is a mess.
Right.
But because today we don't want to accept that, and it's hard, we're going to go back to the past and be like, oh, I remember when it used to be. Oh, I remember when it used to be. And that keeps us going back to things that don't benefit us. And
Mm-hmm.
then we go to the future and like, oh, it's going to be, it's going to be, it's going to be. And it keeps us chasing things that we think is going to be like. And that
Right.
keeps us from working in today. It
Mm-hmm.
keeps us from doing the work today that we know
Yep.
we need to do. It keeps us from getting rid of the things that are not beneficial. It keeps us in a place, we're going to either feel stuck or we're going to feel fearful because, we're not going back to how it used to be. Even if it's still good, it's not what it used to be because change happens. Even
Right.
relationships. It was good when
Yep.
it first started, but guess what? If you don't do work on it, life is constantly changing. And
Exactly.
then if you will wake up one morning and be like, oh my goodness, but it's because you stayed over there when it was fresh and new and exciting and just really wanting to bask in that and not doing the work as you progress. You wake
Right.
up one day and your reality looks a whole lot different.
Mm. Yep.
So yeah.
That's big. That
Mm-hmm.
is so big. And again, I just want to encourage you guys to rewind that and take note and just really take notes and with the notes that you're taking, sit with yourself and
Mm-hmm.
meditate on that, and don't be afraid to implement change. Don't be afraid to get out of things that aren't beneficial or serving you well, that are damaging, and just do so much work, and know that you are important and that you are valued, and that the enemy is competing for you.
Mm-hmm.
But God wants you and loves you way more, and
Yes.
there's victory on the other side of that. My last two questions. This has been so good. I feel like we could sit and talk and write a book and write some journals and do all kind of things. But
Yes.
it's so needed. I feel like, especially with where we are in life, where we are just in society, where we are, where with social media being so conflicted and people getting a ton of the wrong information, or
Mm-hmm.
where we are, where, we have people in our lives who are speaking truth, but the truth that they're speaking is sprinkled with the devil's dust, and so it's not really
Mm-hmm.
truth. So yeah, this is good, and I think it's gonna help. It's helping me. So I'm confident that it's gonna help so many other women, or men, if you're listening, just grow and thrive. Last two questions is, what is something, I guess, that you wish that you knew before, that you wouldn't have, I guess, filled your bag with, that it wouldn't have made your bag so heavy? What is something that you know now that you wish you would have known before? Um, yeah. What's something that you've learned, I guess, over the course of your life and throughout many, many journeys, that you wish you wouldn't have filled your bag with, some of the things that are toxic, some of the things that are just heavy. Yeah.
So one thing that I wish I had known, and I guess in my mind at some point I did know it, but I really didn't know it in my heart, is
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't have to do it by myself. Early on in
Wow.
my life, I thought that I had to take care of myself. I had to protect myself. I had to. So when I was thinking those things, I started putting things into place that I thought was going to help me. So I put uh, the lack of trust in place. I
Mm-hmm.
put independent woman in place. I
Mm-hmm.
put all these parts of my ego that I thought were going to protect me and take care of me and protect me from the outside world. I put all those things on. So I wish I had
Right.
learned at an early age that I didn't have to do those things, that I wasn't alone. I have always known about God, but the relationship, of course, did not form early in my life. And
Mm-hmm.
so I felt like that I had to do it. And then, like I said earlier, go down deep in the bottom of my bag when I got in trouble and pull it out and find God and start pulling out all the other things that I had put in place, all the other things that I had stuffed inside, so that
Mm-hmm.
He could help
Right.
myself, when I thought at the beginning I had to help myself.
Right.
So I think that's the most important thing that I've learned along the way is, don't try to do this by yourself. Don't try
Mm-hmm.
to do it by yourself. God has people in place for you. He has resources in place for you. He is always there for you. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the lesson that I learned. Sue, He is there for you. I'm here for you. You don't have to do this on your own. So let down those walls.
Right.
You can trust when you trust through me. Every
Yep.
situation is not going to look the same. So these coping mechanisms that I learned early on and I carried all up into my adult life, that was really coming across. I'm thinking I'm all together, but what I'm giving to
Mm.
people is showing up in a whole different way. But I'm like, this is
Right.
me. This is who I am. This is what you're going. What you see is what you get. And it was not true. It
Right.
was the ego part of me and all those things that I had put into place showing up, was
Right.
really, no matter what I looked like on the outside, I was coming across and I was doing things that were so out of order. But it was
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have things in their proper place. So guess what? It's going to
Right.
spill out.
Yep.
So that's the one
Yep.
thing that I wish I had learned early on. And another thing is that I don't just have to exist. I just thought, okay, this is life. This is where I am. This is how it's going to be. And so I just existed in it. So I didn't try to make
Right.
any changes. In relationship, this is how it's going to be. This is what you get. So you don't try to make changes when you believe you just have to exist somewhere.
Right.
But when I realized I didn't have to do it by myself and I learned that God was with me, He showed me the abundance and the things that He wanted for my life, the joy and the peace that
Mm-hmm.
He had for my life. If I'm reading that word and I'm not getting that and I'm not seeing it produced in my life, that's not the fruit that's coming from my life. Okay, I'm still doing something that I should not be doing.
Right.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
still in I'm still in the driver's seat. Because once you abide in the word says, if you abide in me, I'm going to abide in you. And guess what? Your fruit going to produce like that's what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But if you still trying to do things on your own, you're still doing it your way because you think you got to take care of yourself. You think you got to do things and God might not show up. So I got to handle this
Right.
person. Or I got to handle this situation or he not working fast enough. I got to handle it.
Mm.
So I keep going back to my old ways. And he said, he keeps saying, you do not have to do this by yourself. Like you said, God loves us so much more than we
Right.
can ever love ourselves. And until we learn how to love ourselves, and we don't know how to love ourselves outside of God. I know, I mean, people say self love, self care, all this stuff. That leaves you dependent on
Self.
yourself
That, that part.
until you get God's way. Because, all the self loving and the self worth and the self care that's going on in the world. Why do we have so many miserable people? Why do we have so many sad, down?
Exactly.
If
Exactly.
all this selfing is going on and it's working, why are
Mm-hmm.
we in the situations that we're in? Because we cannot understand ourselves outside of God. And then when we can't understand ourselves outside of God, we don't know how to deal with other people. The Bible
Right.
says, love yourself. First of all, we got to love God. And then love
Mm-hmm.
your neighbor as you love yourself. That's a
Right.
pattern. That's an order that we have to go in. You have to
Mm-hmm.
love God. God has to show you how to love you. Then you know how to love your neighbor. You know how to love other people.
Mm.
And a lot of us not doing this. We over here in our self-love, self-care, self-worth, self-value, all of this self. We leave God out. So then we go out into all these other situations, spaces, and people. And so we
Right.
selfing them the way we self ourselves. And
Yep.
it's causing a lot of chaos and a lot of things that we don't have to do. And God is over here at the starting point saying, you don't have to do this by
Mm.
yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've learned along the way. That's the one thing I wish I had known. Don't try to do it by yourself.
Yeah, I think we're all guilty of attempting to do it by ourselves at
Mm-hmm.
some point in
Mm-hmm.
our life, in some point in just the journey, regardless of what avenue that the journey is,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's in our careers or in our parenting or in our relationships with family or relationships with significant others. Like we're all guilty of that in some form or fashion. And I love what you said. It's like, first we got to love God. Like before we can even get to understanding and loving self, like we got to love God and then
Mm-hmm.
go into self. And then that overflows to other people. And
Mm-hmm.
when we do things out of alignment, from the beginning, it causes so many other things in our lives to spiral downwardly. And so instead of growing and thriving and walking boldly with Christ, it's like we have like this toxic relationship with him, And it's not that he desires that, but we've created that where we're like tug of war, and it's like one day we want to walk with the enemy, one day we want to walk with God, and so many different things in life that's a distraction. And I just feel like it's so important for us to really, really do the self work. But before we can begin the self work, we have to be able to and be able and willing to self
Yes.
reflect, and then
Yes.
being honest and vulnerable with ourselves before we could do that with other people. Taking a ton of notes, and moving forward with some strategies. And so,
Yes.
my last question for you, being that you've journeyed so many different things in life that you probably didn't foresee when you first began to love bags, and you first began to fill them with toys, and something that toys are something that's so innocent,
Mm-hmm.
and you begin to fill your bags with that. But then at some point you dumped all those toys on the floor, and you begin to fill them with real life issues. And I'm sure over the course of life, like, there were some times that your bag was light. You had a couple of things thrown in there, and then you had to go to compartmentalizing, where you put the little bags inside of the big bags. And then at some point it was just a ton of little bags, big bags, a lot of baggage that was weighing you down. And sometimes you may dump some of that, and then you pick up something else. That's just, I feel like, the story of life for so many of us, especially women. But where you are in life today, do you feel like your bag is heavier, or do you feel like your bag is lighter, and why?
My bag is so much lighter. And it's
Mm,
because a lot of the things that I talked about earlier on, about the choices, about the decisions, about the committing to go through the process, as I've done those things, because like you say, my life took a lot of twists and turns. And a lot of the
mm-hmm.
twists and turns were because I chose that. That, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, the toys that I started off putting in my bag at an early age were because those were the things that I liked. Those are the things that I
Right.
wanted to carry with me. Those are the things that I wanted to keep close to me. And so as I grew up, I just kept putting those same pleasurable, well, not the same ones, but pleasurable toys in my bag.
Mm,
Maybe not some things that God would have me put in my bag, but I put some toys in there, things that I like,
mm-hmm.
things that I wanted,
Right.
that I thought were going to bring me life. Because we like the toys we put in there, they bring us life for a minute till we realize they don't have, these toys don't have any life.
No
You know,
value.
these dolls that you talking to and playing with, and you realize, okay, she's not talking back. But as we
Right.
go on
Yep.
and we
Yep.
grow in life, we keep putting the same kinds of, toys that we think are going to bring us pleasure. And then we wake up one day and we feel like, oh, these things are not giving me life. But when I made the commitment to, okay, I got to realize things that are not giving me life. And we know that
Mm-hmm.
anything that comes from God is life giving. So they're not giving me life.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a commitment to no more and keep moving forward. I've peeled off a lot of layers. I've taken out a lot of little bags. I've taken out some paper that don't have writing on them anymore
Mm-hmm.
because they're so old. Things that don't benefit me. And I'm not just saying benefit me to make me feel good or look good, but benefit
Right.
me so that I can walk in my purpose, that I can do the things that God
Mm-hmm.
called me to do. If these things are holding me
Absolutely.
back and keeping me stuck, I cannot afford that anymore. I want to
Right.
wake up and I want to do the things that God has called me to do. I want to live the way that God has called me to live. And I'm praying every day to Him. If it comes up, God, when you were saying self reflect and all that, the Bible also tells us to let God examine your heart. Some things that
Mm-hmm.
we have and we say, oh, I need this, I want it. We still say that. Even though we're walking
Right.
a faith filled life, even though we're loving God, some things still get in our hearts that we may not consider things that we need to let go of. But if you let God examine your heart in your self reflection, He'll show you those things that need to fall off. So, yes, a lot of things have fallen off. My bag is a lot lighter, getting a lot smaller in real life, literally, and internally. Because, like I said earlier, I have a crossbody bag now. I love it. And I'm just like, why? Because, even people, when I said that my baggage would spill out, people would try to pick up my bag. Before, when I was carrying those heavy purses, and they were like, "Oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh, what do you have in here?" That was what life was looking like. People were trying to get close to me, or people were trying to interact with me, and then all this just like stuff would start coming out. It's heavy, and they're like, "What you got in there?"
Right.
So I've given up a lot of those things. So internally, I'm lighter. So externally, I don't need those things,
Mm-hmm.
to make me feel secure, make me feel like I'm good, make me feel like I fit in. So
Right.
literally, I am carrying a much lighter bag.
Man, this was so good. You have preached like a sermon series that we gotta have you back to give us some more wisdom and knowledge so
Oh,
that as women we can continue. I mean, men, if
yeah,
you want to unpack your backpack, that's fine. But like, I just feel like it's so important for women to hear this because it's so there are so many things that we're carrying around, and
hmm,
whether it's fear, whether it's doubt, whether it's people
yeah,
pleasing, our past mistakes, toxic relationships, just all the things that don't serve us well, and it's just we really, really have to get to a place where we're willing and
yes,
open to shedding those things so that we can fill them with things and that God has for us with purpose and passion, and that we can live that out and walk that out boldly and just really get rid of the distractions, the things that the enemy is trying to place on our path. And I feel like at so many points in my life, I've had my bag filled with things of the Lord and things of the devil, and
hmm,
they don't really commingle,
they
and
don't go
so
together.
they definitely don't go together, and I have them all compartmentalized, and so um yeah, I think it's important to really, really do the work and to begin to clean out our bags so that we
Yeah,
are no longer weighed down with things that don't serve us well. Um, Thank you so much for taking the time out to
yeah.
chat with
Thank
me and
you.
really go through this. And I think it's going to help so many of us really begin to do a ton of self work, to begin to create some lists of things that we need to shed, some things that we need to keep, but most importantly, doing the self work that where we're able to
Yes.
really work on what's going on the inside
Hmm.
and make that reflective on the outside, because so many of
Yes.
us, we're wearing a mask, and we're
Yes.
appearing that we have so many things figured out, and people are attempting to mimic that because they think we got our life
Hmm.
together, when in reality,
Hmm.
like we really don't. And so thank you for encouraging us and just really challenging
Yes.
us to do the work that it takes to be able to get in a place where we're able to grow and we're able to thrive. Will you
Yes.
tell people where to find you, just on social media? You're also a life coach, and so like if you need a mentor, if you need somebody to help you journey through life, like she's your girl, like she don't just talk the talk, she walks the walk, and she's journeyed so many different things that people would say um would just break her and have her in a place of just a place of not feeling like she has purpose. And God has really done, I think, a great work in your life, and restoring you and redeeming you and giving you passions and truths and something to not only do for yourself, but to call out of other women.
Yeah.
So, can you tell people where they can find you on social media, how they can get tapped into some of the things that you're doing, when it comes to life coaching? Because I think that's something that a lot of us need that we're not even aware that we need, and just how to be encouraged by all the things that you're doing. She's doing so many things. So all the things that you're doing.
Yes, you can find me. I have a website, www.suemageedavis.com. There you can find the different programs and things that I do. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Being You. That's BEING, the letter U. Being You life coaching on Instagram and on Facebook. And one of the programs that I do is the Well Woman Journey, and that is where we are talking about this very thing of shedding those things that are keeping us from walking in our purpose. A lot of us, most of us, have a story. So, are we living in that story? Or are we living from that story? God longs to take our story, whatever it was, whatever thing that, like the lady at the well, kept her going there at a time that was not optimal, kept her isolated, kept her in a place of just not wanting to be around other people. Jesus, God, the Holy Spirit, all of those wrapped up in one now longs to take us from that story to a testimony. They long to take us from where we were, where we have been, to use us in a place where we can do ultimately what that woman at the well did, go back and tell her
Mm-hmm.
community about a person or about a man who changed her life. And so that's what I do with the Well Woman Journey. And you can find the information about that on either of those platforms. But the last thing I wanted to say was, even if your bag is big, even if it's still huge, everybody's not going to carry a crossbody. But if your bag is big, make sure that it's filled with the things of the Lord, the joy, the
Mm.
peace, the love. Make sure it's full of that, because when you open that up, it's going to overflow. Those are the things that you're able to give from your heart, from your spirit, from your soul, to all those that you are called to impact. So that's it. Um, that's where you can find me. Those are the things that I'm doing. I love to work with women and young girls, just encouraging and inspiring, because the one thing that I know that changed my life was when I learned who God really created me to be. That let me shed so many falsehoods that I had taken on, so many lessons that I had learned at an early age that were not my truth, or not the truth. My truth is
Mm.
hopefully the truth of God. That's the truth that I want to be walking in, not my truth. But allowed me to get rid of some of all those things, the mindsets that were keeping me confined, the mindsets that were keeping me, in bondage, really.
Mm-hmm.
It allowed me to shed all of those things. So just learning who you are. We can only learn who we are when we walk with the Creator, and we can allow Him to show us the things, like we've been talking about all evening, that are not beneficial to us. And they
Right.
may look like some things that you feel like you don't want to let go of. But if you go through the process, I promise you, on the other side, there are so many rewards.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, listen, y'all, I share with y'all tonight somebody who I get to do life with. Again, this is my mother in love. So she raised my husband, who is, again, I'll say the man of my dreams. This is my children's Mina. We call her Mina, so I'm sure y'all heard me say that just a couple of times. But I've shared with you guys tonight someone who is near and dear to my heart, who I get to do life with on a daily basis. And she shared just a little bit with you guys of what she has done in her life, what's been beneficial for her. We have these conversations all the time, but I think a lot of things that she shared tonight is beneficial for a lot of us, where we can continue to do that work, continue to take those notes. But if you even need more guidance and more wise counsel and somebody to do life with you, like, she's your girl, she's your person. And so reach out to her, reach out to me. But man, this has been extremely fruitful for me. So I'm sure it's extremely fruitful for so many other people. So thank you for joining us tonight. And I'm excited. I'm just like so amped up. I'm get ready to pull my notebook out and dump some more things out of my bags. So thank
Yes.
you so much. And
Thank
we'll see
you.
you guys next time on Tea with Tamela. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to reach out if you need some help with some of these things. Peace.
Tea with Tamela. Let's laugh and spread